If you don't want to do it, you can just follow me. Alright. So this is a counter plan that my team has written. Now, the interesting thing is that does the net benefit to a counter plan need to be a disadvantage? As soon as I looked at her, she looked away from me like I really don't want to answer this, so I'm going to make her answer.
I don't know.
You don't know? Can you just read a counter plan? The answer is yes. So for this counter plan, it is an agent counter plan. What does that mean? Yeah.
You change agent.
You change the agent. So the United States federal government doesn't do the affirmative. The European Union does. This counter plan is specifically written against asteroids. But you'll see, if you scroll down in my document template, that I have solvency for satellites. I have solvency for Earth observation satellites, for launching, for colonization, for asteroids, for Mars, for SPS. Do you now see why this counter plan would be strategic? Because they can read any AF, and I can just say, Europe can do your AF no matter what. Done. Who likes that now? No one? You're just not going to read counter plans? How about you? No counter plans? How about when we do critiques this afternoon? Alright.
They're still groggy from lunch.
So the counter plan has a piece of solvency evidence. What does that mean? Yeah, what does that mean? In the case of the counter plan, it would mean that it can do the same things that the affirmative can do. Do you agree? Can someone shut that door? Can you shut the door? Now the interesting thing about this is that I don't need a disadvantage. Now what are you going to ask, Scott? What are you going to ask? What does a counter plan have to be? What? I just heard it. It starts with a C. Competitive. It has to be competitive. It has to compete somehow. It has to be different. Right?
Is the pure meaning of competitive for a counter plan that it has to somehow compete, or that it can't be, it's mutually exclusive? You can't do both the affirmative and the...
You can't do all of the affirmative and part or all of the counter plan.
But if that was the case, then wouldn't that make permutation impossible? If these are so mutually exclusive, then how could affirmative try to promote it, theoretically speaking?
I mean, I don't think you can harm this one. Because there are disadvantages that just link to the app and don't link to the counter plan. I mean, the answer to that is that you would have to win an illegitimate permutation. So, like, do the app, but have the European Space Agency fund the affirmative. But that doesn't have the European Space Agency actually do the affirmative, and severs out of the funding of the 1AC. What do I mean by severs? Since none of you have made a permutation in our debates, we haven't gotten to this. What do I mean by this? Yeah. Person I just debated. No, you looked at him, I'm looking at you. What does severs mean? If I'm the F and I cut off my hand, is that legitimate? No, because you have to defend the entirety of the affirmative. If you don't defend the entirety of the affirmative, what does that make the affirmative? If you don't defend the entirety of the affirmative, what does that make the affirmative? You all don't like this. Makes the affirmative conditional, doesn't it? It means they can kick the affirmative at any point in the debate. Do you think that's fair? Do you think you should be able to read a 1AC? And then the affirmative is like new F and the 2AC? Do you think that's fair? Hey, you aren't paying attention. Do you think that's fair? Yeah, that's what I thought. Pay attention. Do you think that's fair? No, I don't think it's fair either. So the difference with this counterplan is that the net benefit to the counterplan is about Europe and not about the plan at all. So right now, the EU's space policy is in opposition to the United States' space policy. Quote, the EU has produced highly unilateral, what does unilateral mean? What does unilateral mean?
She said it.
What did you say?
She had it over there.
Sure. There are three really important terms in debate that lots of people use. All right? If I do something unilaterally, what does that mean? The U.S. invaded Iraq unilaterally. What does that mean? By yourself. One. Unilateral action. I take action. How about this then? Bilaterally.
There wasn't another.
Sure, so like bilaterally would be like U.S.-Taiwan relations, right? Like relations between countries. And those relations in that case are good and high right now. What do I mean by high and low? So if I'm like economy high now, what does that mean? No, not good. The economy is wealthy right now. If I say economy low now, what does that mean? Yeah, poor. Alright, so bilaterally would be like, stand up. Alright, we're going to have bilateral relations right now. Come here. Great. There you go. Alright. Bilateral. What types of things are bilateral in debate? Like relationships between individual countries? How about the final step of this now? Yeah, two or more. All right, stand up, stand up, stand up. No, you stand up. Ready? All right. What are some examples of things that are done multilaterally? Trade, great example. Can trade also be done bilaterally? Sure. What are some other things that are multilateral that are important? Yes. Where's the UN? Yeah, it's on 42nd Street, you're right. It is everywhere. It's also headquartered on 49th in the water. Or 42nd in the water. What else? What else is important? Well, what might be important for Taiwan? Is Taiwan a part of ASEAN?
Yes.
East Asia.
What's that? No, it's not Asian. Didn't spell Asian wrong.
Okay.
It's an economic security alliance, isn't it? I think.
More economic than security, but
Yeah.
yeah, that's it's most.
It's an economic alliance. What does that mean?
You have alliances of different countries.
Yeah, it's like, all right, let's trade. Pass it to him.
And then me.
And then for some countries, here, like him. All right, ready? 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 All right, you fail. You play keep away from other countries. And you hope that people like Jimmy don't intercept your goods. So do we understand that? Do you think if I did something unilaterally, that I'd do it for a reason? Because it's in my own interest, right? So in the context of this counterplan, the European Space Agency does things Am I the only one that thinks it's not working? Alright, does everyone have the file up? Oh, there we go. So, the EU produced a highly unilateral, by itself, document focused on the advancement of European domestic space capabilities. The order and precedence of the strategic objectives were like a national focus document with end states reflecting the interest of Europe first and lacking global favor of the U.S. space policy. These capabilities enable economic and political independence of the European citizens. A solid technological base is required if Europe is an independent, competitive space industry. What does this say? It says the U.S. wants to, or the EU wants to play keep away from the United States with space, right? Yes. Why? Can you guess why?
The US economy is bad. US is on a huge debt.
What does zero sum mean? It means every action trades off.
It means if you win something, the other person loses something.
Yeah.
If the other person wins something, you lose that much. So there's only so much pie. If you get half, then the other person only gets half.
If I pass her this marker, there's not another marker. If she passes it back to me, she has no markers. It's finite, it's not infinite. Right? So both the United States and the European Union have net goals worldwide with leadership. of science and technology, the EU has led an important metric that is challenging the United States and others. Many EU labs are equal or better than those in the United States. The EU has the goal of becoming the most competitive and dynamic one. So if the US does something, it means the EU can't do it. Now, does anyone see why this is strategic now? How do you test competition? Permutation. Can you permute this? Yes, you could. Would that permutation mean the counterplan is not competitive? Well, I don't know. Let's find out. The US and EU acting together looks like a US-run operation. Since the US is a world power, the EU needs to act alone to boost their own leadership. CSIS and 7. Euro-Atlantic solidarity was the central dimension of Europe's commitment to unity, and encouraging that vision, the U.S. intention was not to impose itself as a model or secure a permanent control over the weak continent. Well, that piece of evidence is terrible. Conflicting strategies among the U.S. and the EU create zero-sum conditions. Rivalries for influence and resources will most likely turn into a zero-sum game for the EU. The EU would inevitably become a play ball between the U.S. and China. The EU needs to continuously assert its position and avoid leading to either side. This is a very good piece of evidence.
What if I was the affirmative though, and I want to say, look, actually US-EU cooperation counterbalances China, so it's not a zero-sum game?
Sure. So the reason why the other thing that you could say would be the affirmative will say that the EU acting alone for space leads to EU power, and EU power is good. What can the affirmative then do? Is EU power good? Does anyone know what's going on in Europe right now? The Eurozone, right? They're having major economic difficulties and trying to bail out countries like Greece. And that's not going too well. So European power could bankrupt the world, possibly. What doesn't this 1NC currently have?
Money.
No, an impact. The reason it doesn't is that you have lots of choices to choose from. And I would probably change it depending on the affirmative. Why? Yeah.
Because you want the impact to be bigger.
Well, I want it to interact, don't I? If they say economy, I might want my impact to be trade and argue that trade has a better internal link to the economy and also prevents wars. Has anyone ever heard of turns the case? Yeah.
When you use evidence or something and you turn it so it's in favor of you.
Sure, so if I read a spending dissent that says the economy is going to collapse, and your affirmative's impact is war, I read a piece of evidence in 2NC that says the economic downturn causes war. So we lead to the same thing. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Doesn't war stimulate the economy?
War stimulates the economy?
Yeah, doesn't it? Because like, it has mass economy.
I mean, I don't believe so. Like, there have been instances in which it has. There's good evidence that's written that that is a coincidence. Like, have you seen the pictures of people in post-war or in post-World War I Germany where to buy a loaf of bread they had
the people who lost the war.
Yes.
He's talking about the people who won the war.
I mean, is it good for the people who lost though? That's the question. Like, I don't think you should have to have a wheelbarrow full of money to buy a loaf of bread.
World War II, though, was what brought the U.S. economy out of the recession, depression, recession.
That's arguable. I've seen evidence both ways. Then you have countries like Zimbabwe who have always gone to war with other nations. And, you know, I thought it's crazy that I got like a bunch of $1,000 bills coming into Taiwan. I have a Zimbabwe money at home.
Or a million.
It is $50 billion.
Feelings.
50 billion. And that's worth like 28 cents. Although it cost me like $60 on eBay. 50 billion. You want $50 billion? Alright, here. I got a quarter. Here.
Thanks to Robert Mugabe.
Yeah, here's a $50 billion. No. This is like a quarter of a penny. Alright? So what impact would you put in for our affirmative? Would you maybe put in this one? Maybe. Maybe you put in warming because you think warming turns the economy. And warming, and you would solve the reason why those conflicts for the climate would happen in the first place, because warming would no longer be inevitable in the world of the counterplan. Does that make sense? All right, we're going to take a break. Everyone stand up. All right. Have you debated?
I don't know.
Oh, dang.
Have you debated? All right.
Yes. Oh my God.
I'm going to be like, we're going to take a break, and they're all going to be like, I'm not. Freeze. That's the next song I'm going to do. Freeze.
I was about to start.
All right, 2A's cross X and the 1NC. Hey, cross X and the 1NC. Come on. Are you ready? All right.
Can you close the door? That room? Last room?
You laughing at me? All right. Ready? All right, everyone needs to be quiet. All right, you can start.
What is the status of your house lot?
Conditional,
Under what condition would you kick your house?
any.
How much do you plan on spending on your house?
Hopefully nothing, because my net benefit is a spending percent.
How much do you plan to give the people that work?
Well, the government wouldn't be giving them money. The people that hire them would be giving them money. So those companies could increase their budget, but it wouldn't increase the budget of the United States federal government, which is what the spending increase of the disadvantage is predicated off of.
But you just said you wouldn't want to spend any money, then how are you deciding to give?
The government doesn't want to spend any money. A private company could spend money.
Don't say okay.
How about the other people? How about the poor people?
What do you mean?
What if they?
College students are poor, I make them richer. Because they get good jobs instead of working at Mossberger after college. That's time. 2AC. Alright, everyone's gonna need to be quiet. Hey, can you come stand up in the front of the room so people on both sides can hear you? Alright, 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Is anyone not ready?
The first one that said it.
Are you not ready?
No, I'm ready.
Oh.
No one else has said it yet. Alright.
Status quo is already solving. The only advantage is to boost the economy, while Discover can not just solve solar flares, but it can also save millions of dollars and electricity. There's a problem. The Carrington Caliber solar storm was coming by 2013, and Phillips 2009, an international panel of experts led by NOAA released a new prediction for the next solar cycle. The Great Geomagnetic Storm in 1859 occurred during a solar cycle of about the same size as the prediction for 2013. If a smaller storm occurred today, it will cause $1 to $2 billion in damages to society's high-tech infrastructure and require four years to completely recover. The magnitude of these will be huge. Massive solar storms make global disaster inevitable. Derbyshire, 2001. The word is overdue. Ferocious space storm that can knock out the communication satellites. Ground aircraft and sugar blackouts. Hundreds of billions of pounds of damage, scientists say. Mankind is now more vulnerable to a major solar storm that is at any time in history. The planet should prepare for a global Katrina-style disaster. A massive eruption would send waves of radiation and charged particles to Earth. It could crash stock markets and cause power cuts that last months. Most active period of its natural cycle. The sun is entering the most active period of its natural cycle. The issue of this weather has got to be taken seriously. The potential vulnerability of our systems have increased dramatically. The failure of Advanced Composition Explorer, or ACE, is creating a huge operational gap in our ability to predict storms. Discovery is key to solve. Lawton Walker, 2010. The United States has taken measures to monitor the risk of and provide time warning to reduce the consequences. Public officials may jeopardize these measures unless they overcome penny-wise and counter-foolish proposed measurements. Efforts to predict the space weather and prevent such catastrophic events currently rely on data from single spacecraft, which is where AC has fuel due to 2024. Top scientists and military strategists have fired the confidence that breaks down just when there is a fire, just when you need it the most. Discover was built to monitor Earth weather and global warming, equipment that can measure and help predict solar and space weather. Without an ACE replacement, there will be no warning in time to prevent potentially catastrophic damages. This is a serious life-threatening matter that demands our attention.
That's time. So what did he do in the 2AC that was different than anyone else has done? He really went for the counterplan doesn't solve solar storms, didn't he? Yeah. Alright. We're about to see why you need a diversity of impacts in the 2NC. Alright, no, I'm not going to be cross-sectioned.
So do I go back?
Yes. Someone time me. This is why you don't just read cards against the counter plan when the negative has more time than you do. Alright?
How long do you want? 2 minutes?
5.
3,
2.
1, go.
Lack of STEM education is estimated geotechnological dominance, superintendent American dominance in science, technology, communities, decline government skills, as key aspects of their economies, more knowledge and technology intensive, and ensure competitiveness in the globalized correlation spending has been a significant uptick during the last decade. American dominance in research output also continues to assist developing the world, continues to close the gap with the United States on science and technology, engineering, and math education. He said solar storms prevent blackouts, but I have defense to this from the impact defense file that I just showed you. Blackouts happen monthly, proves their impact is empirically denied. This is happened level 4. Every 4 months, U.S. experiences blackout large enough to darken 500,000 of blackouts simply cannot be prevented. It will become increasingly expensive to prevent. The still probability, high consequences events. Fixes are expensive and could even be counterproductive. We cannot verify any particular change wouldn't impose problems, and preventative measures are taken to prevent massive blackouts and escalation. This is the Department of Energy. In 2004, the U.S. Canada Power System conducted a massive investigation into the cost of the blackout and made 42 recommendations to improve power system operations. NERC strengthened its policies on emergency operations planning, reliability, coordinated procedures. It will include compliance metrics in the operating policies and planning standards. New standards thus being developed and training and verified. Operators are being revised, and blackouts are inevitable. Coping, not prevention, should be the primary goal. Optimum 4. We will not prevent all future power failures. The Energy Department needs to focus on lowering the cost and disruptive effect of future blackouts. He says solar storms. There's no uniqueness to this new technology. Means satellites can already predict solar storms. This is Perlman, August 19, 2011. Physicists have predicted the emergence of sunspots 2 days before the appear, providing the first early warning of a violent solar storm can be disruptive electric power grids and plunge cities in the darkness. Until now, space forecasters have been able to work out companies NASA and others to prepare when solar storms occur. Solar physicists and NASA called the predictions an important result of spin. I hope the method could provide time for forecasting this issue. Early warning: the bad space weather will come using technology data. The scientists and their observations from the satellite as a joint project of NASA and ESA and other NASA satellites also provided that solar science to praise it. Called the New York Report very promising. The work will be a major advance, and solar storms come every 11 years. No Carrington event for another 350 years. This is the International Press Conference Council of 10. The frequency and intensity of solar flares at CME's peak and trial, according to the 11-year solar activity data, a solar maximum in CME reaches Earth's storm on record. The Carrington event of 1859 was a massive CME storm. This magnitude is probably once in every 500 years. These space weather events are nothing new, and they won't wipe out the electrical grid. This is scary and 10. Dr. Wilkinson says these claims of coming solar maximum will be the most violent in 100 years and are not factual. The real message of the coming solar maximum period could be as equally absent as any other solar maximum. We monitor black activity there will be a few hours, enough time to prepare. The impact on the power grid will be minimal. At worst, it's a regional thing, not a global thing. As these reports imply, the sun appears to be heading in the lower maximum. The current satellites all forecast for weeks in advance. This is Baker, who is a University of Colorado professor of astrophysical and planetary science, which is more qualified than any of the authors that he's ever read in 2008. Recent development from SOHO to prove the ability to predict solar radiation storms and a new data and analysis technique for electron metrics and reception used to predict the arrival time of solar events. The stereo spacecraft will run confused with solar teaching a week or more advanced when they will be visible for Earth. I'll mark the card here. How much time do I have left?
43 seconds.
39 seconds.
The most important thing that you're going to look at in this debate is someone else did not pay attention when I was giving a lecture this morning and said you needed to do comparative impact calculus. He said that the solar flares were coming down, but he didn't play any defense as to why the recession that is caused from the spending descent isn't more probable when it comes to a shorter time frame than the solar storms. I read a couple pieces of evidence that says that blackouts won't happen and solar storms won't happen, which means the probability and the time frame to get to the magnitude of its impact are very low, where a short-term double-dip recession would lead to complete economic collapse, which we call short-term extinction.
That's it.
Cross-X.
That's very impressive software.
What is?
What you use that?
That's just a view feature on.
But you were able to pick all of the pieces of evidence you wanted and collated it all into a speech.
Actually, I'll show you what I should have done, which is I should have done this. See, I don't know if all the files I'm using are ridiculous, but what I should have done is I should have gone into here and started. I should have gone in and started a 2NC. And then, when I went to the solar storms front line, I should have just gone in and sent it to the speech. And now it's going to be right in the speech document. So, I didn't do it correctly. Alright, cross-examination.
You said that lack of STEM education is different.
Alright, I can't hear you.
Did you say that there's a lack of STEM education?
Yeah.
Well, why do we need STEM education?
You didn't contest that in the 2AC, so I shouldn't have to answer that question.
You said that blackouts are inevitable and they happen monthly.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, come on. I purposely gave you stuff to say when I gave my speech.
When do you think the next solar storm will come?
The evidence I read said what?
20.
I think it said 300. Yeah, 350 years will be the next solar storm. The last Carrington event, 1859, it's a once in a 500-year event. And that's from an independent government council, which means that they don't have any bias like yours does, that's probably written by, oh, I don't know, the energy companies.
Don't say okay, just say thank you.
Thank you.
Just ask the next question. All right, we'll stop. You get 2.5 minutes of prep time to give the 1AR. Oh, what did I throw in there? 2:30 prep. You can certainly tell I have not read any of those cards before. Stumbling along the place.
That's pretty simple.